Hi, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Rena, and welcome to
Biopic, a podcast story. This is a podcast where we dissect the good, bad, ugly, and absurd of this specific genre of motion picture, the biopic. If you want to learn more about us, our scoring system, and how we choose movies, please check out our special introductory episode. Introduction, who are we and what are we doing?
Sarah. What movie are we doing this week?
This week, we will be talking about The Rise of Catherine the Great from 1934. Rena, can you give us the trigger warning?
This movie contains depictions of adultery, misogyny, bad choices about what to do with curly hair, spousal abuse, 1930s production codes getting in the way of telling the truth, toxic bosses, bad parenting, migrating facial moles, mental illness, palace coups, and very thin eyebrows.
Rena, can you give us the spoiler warning?
Spoiler warning. We are going to spoil everything, including possibly the major plot points in works of narrative art having nothing to do with this particular movie. Consider yourself warned.
Some of the sources we used in this episode include Elisabeth and Catherine, Empresses of All the Russias by Robert Coughlin, Catherine the Great, Portrait of a Woman by Robert Massey. I spent just a lot of time on the internet reading a lot of different things. Didn't keep track because that's kind of my brand. I can't emphasize how old this movie is. I was just like, oh my God, this is old.
It's 1 year younger than the last Alexander Korda film we watched, though.
Yeah, and that movie was old, too. I sound like a child. I was just watching Nope again this week, and there's that amazing jockey footage in the movie that was the first film footage, and this feels like the second film footage.
Come on, Birth of a Nation is in between. This movie is at least 50 years younger than the jockey footage, and since we spoil everything, my theory is that Jean Jacket has been up there a lot longer than anyone thinks, and that the jockey in the jockey footage is running from Jean Jacket.
So they're like the Brodies and Jaws, except with Jean Jacket. Like, he's been chasing them forever. And I did just make him masculine because, you know what? Men are terrible.
Yeah, this family has been running from Jean Jacket forever. And we will be completely lost if you haven't seen Nope.
See Nope.
I'm always saying I want us to do more things from the 30s and 40s. I really do. I was just frustrated with this particular one.
Rena, can you tell us just a little bit about Catherine the Great?
So Catherine the Great of Russia was not from Russia. She was born Princess Sophia Augusta Frederica of Anhalt-Zerbst, a German duchy so small you could pass it on the left-hand side. Her mother... I had to do it. I had to.
I respect the choice.
Her mother, Princess Johanna, was 16 when she had Sophia and was disappointed to have wound up married to a middle-aged prince in such a small, unimportant duchy.
I have a question, Rena. Since we've been talking a lot about women who get married in their teens to middle-aged men, did this man give her syphilis?
I don't believe he did. I didn't find anything about it. If he gave her syphilis, nobody wrote it down.
Okay. Copy that. You may continue.
Princess Johanna was disappointed when she had Sophia. She thought her daughter was ugly and said so. She was disappointed she didn't have a son. And at the age of 10, Sophia met her future husband, Peter, who at the time is a German prince. He was in line to inherit Sweden. He hasn't yet become a Grand Duke of Russia. And they get along well enough, but she commented that at the age of 11, that Peter was frequently under the influence of alcohol. At 15, her mother's cousin, Elisabeth, has become Empress of Russia through a coup. So Elisabeth needs an heir, and Peter is her nephew, so she invites him to become the Grand Duke of Russia. And Sophia, at 15, goes to Russia to marry Peter. She gets there, and people remark on how bright she is. Her mother is a pain in the butt. around the castle, constantly wants more money, more better rooms, upset over where she's being sat at. And the Russians can't wait to get rid of Johanna. And she leaves Catherine with a very high debt. So Catherine's allowance money is going into paying off her mother's debts. And then we need to talk about why. So this is not Peter the Great. Peter the Third is Peter the Great's grandson. There is a Peter the Second in between who is a child and doesn't matter. Peter liked to play the violin, and this is from Robert Massey, who I will be taking most of my notes from. He delighted in playing the violin, but he was never taught to play properly. Instead, he practiced on his own, playing his favorite melodies as best he could, tormenting all within earshot.
Going back to last week where we were talking about indulging a crazy rich person, no one around could stop him, right? I'm guessing?
He's the Grand Duke. He's heir to all the Russias. And Peter doesn't like Russia. He doesn't want to learn Russian. Catherine, on the other hand, as soon as she gets there, starts working really hard at studying to become Greek Orthodox, at learning Russian. She paces around the palace at night in the Russian winter, practicing Russian, and comes down with a horrible cold flu pneumonia thing and almost dies. Everybody loves her because she's trying so hard. And also she's brilliant. She loves to read philosophy. Later in life, she'd correspond with Voltaire. She was an intellectual. You don't really see that in this film. Other terrible things about Peter. So Catherine later wrote that Peter had only 2 occupations, both of which tortured my eardrums from morning to night. One was to scrape his violin. The other was to train his hunting dogs. Violently cracking a whip and yelling huntsman's cries, Peter made the dogs run from one end of his 2 rooms to the other. He comes down with smallpox and almost dies, and they think that might have caused him to regress because he still plays with dolls. He brings the toy soldiers and the dolls into bed with him and Catherine. They don't consummate the marriage. It's another one of those cases where nobody told either of them what to do. And Catherine doesn't conceive an heir for 9 years. She actually says, I did not have sex with that man. The jury is out on whether the eventual Emperor Paul III is Peter's. He looks a lot like Peter, but it's all up for debate. I found so many fascinating stories about how awful Peter is. In 1750, during the last week of Lent, Peter was in his room one afternoon, cracking an enormous coachman's whip. He snapped it right and left with sleeping strokes, gleefully making his servants run from one corner of the room to the other. Then somehow he managed to slash himself severely across the cheek.
Cool.
Yeah, but the most bothersome is Peter's obsession. So he would fill his rooms with tables full of toy soldiers where you couldn't get in between them. And he would drill the toy soldiers. And this is again from Robert Massey. One day when Catherine entered this room, she saw a large dead rat hanging from a model gallows. Appalled, she asked why it was there. Peter explained that the rat had been convicted of a crime that, according to the laws of war, merited the ultimate punishment. Therefore, it had been executed by hanging. The rat's crime was to have climbed over the ramparts of a cardboard fortress standing on a table and eaten 2 papier-mâché sentries standing watch. One of Peter's dogs had caught the rat. The culprit had been court-martialed and immediately hanged. Now, Peter declared, it would remain exposed to public gaze for 3 days as an example. Catherine listened and burst out laughing. Then she apologized and pleaded ignorance of military law. Nevertheless, he was stung by her facetious attitude and began to sulk. Her last word on the matter was that could be argued, on behalf of the rat, that it had been hanged without having been heard in its own defense.
I know you like these royal people, but seriously,
he's not someone who should be in charge of anything.
Clearly.
And Elisabeth loved to party. I'll get into that later. She's shown doing actual work in this movie. It's doubtful Elisabeth did any actual work. She did own something like 4,000 dresses. But Elisabeth is still fondly remembered in Russia because she got rid of capital punishment while she was in office. When Elisabeth dies, Peter becomes emperor, and he and Catherine are not getting along at all by this point. He's taken a lover who's this woman who everyone thinks is just ugly and stupid. He is threatening to get rid of Catherine, but she's been making friends everywhere. She's produced an heir, Lord knows who the father is, but as soon as she has the baby, Elisabeth takes the baby away from her and Catherine barely ever sees him, so they don't really bond. She has 2 other children with men who she is not married to, a baby girl who dies quite young, and then she had a boy with Orlov who was made a count. She arranges a coup to get rid of her husband. And then she went on to rule Russia for decades. Very accomplished rule. She had many lovers, although I don't see how she's any worse than any man who was in charge of a country. I will cut it there because this movie only covers the time up to the coup.
Can I ask a really, really shallow question on this?
Does this question have to do with a horse?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
No, my very shallow question is, we see in this movie an actress named Elisabeth Bergner playing Catherine. Also, Elle Fanning played her on The Great. Helen Mirren has played her in a mini series. So was Catherine the Great very attractive? Because these are all among them some of the comeliest women who have lived and are living.
She was considered very attractive when she was young. Her actual wedding dress is in the National Collection, and you can look it up. And it's not too far off from what they have in the movie that you can see. She has this itty-bitty waist.
Beyond that shallow question, I think we also know that there are stories about Catherine being intimate with her horse. And I know that's a question that everybody has. Do you have any details on that? That must be true, right?
Let's get this out of the way at the top of the episode. Catherine the Great fucking a horse is the Pizzagate of the 18th century. It's Wayfair furniture being made out of children. It's millions of paid crisis actors. It's vaccines causing autism. It is every troll-begotten conspiracy theory chucked out there in the name of making society dysfunctional. And it's especially timely and pertinent because the horse-fucking libel was done for the purposes of smearing, discrediting, and knocking down the reputation of a brilliant, prodigiously competent woman in power.
Glad that's changed. I'm glad we're not doing that anymore.
It's nice. The horse, she loved to ride. She did not fuck a horse. She did not die fucking a horse. She had a stroke.
I mean, I listen, I'm not a doctor and I am not a scientist and I barely paid attention in biology. I can't do the math on that in a way to make it all make sense.
Nor should you need to, because she didn't fuck a horse.
Independently of this conversation, I had a hard time believing that was possible because I can't map out the mechanics of it. This is a good conversation to be having.
I think we can just wrap it up with, I think I wrote a very nice little speech about, yes, it's not true. And people always talk trash about women in power, and this was done to smear her by men in power. It never happened. So, Sarah, can you please tell us a little bit about the movie The Rise of Catherine the Great from 1934?
So I'd be happy to. We are back with our friend Alexander Korda, the producer, director, screenwriter, and most critically for this background, the founder and head of London Films, an independent production company. He had a huge hit with Private Life of Henry VIII, which we watched. London Films was a big deal because it was an independent production company formed in the UK, first of its kind. And it was super foundational to the rise of everyone from Laurence Olivier to Charles Laughton to Vivien Leigh to Merle Oberon, who was married to Alexander Korda for a time. And also Michael Powell, a director who most people would know from The Red Shoes and also Peeping Tom. He is super influential to a lot of filmmakers, including my Lord and Savior Martin Scorsese, and also Brian De Palma, a filmmaker who I love, but is not my spiritual guide on this earth. And he also was married to Thelma Schoonmaker, who Scorsese introduced him to. And as we talked about last time, Alexander Korda, a lot of amazing things can be sort of traced back to him. Last time I talked about how we don't have the Coen brothers as they are without Alexander Korda. I'm just going to touch on a couple of other things we wouldn't have. Stanley Kubrick, Edward G. Robinson's performance in Double Indemnity. And I regret to tell you, Rena, because I know how you feel about a lot of it, the French New Wave.
Well, it's mostly just, it's Godard shoving his politics in my face. I don't want to watch people eating sandwiches over voiceovers reading from Karl Marx, and that's basically all that Godard is, aside from Breathless.
Fair enough. So here's why I say all of this about him and give this big lead up. So one facet of Alexander Korda that we didn't talk about is that he was also a filmmaker before he founded London Films. He was a really critical part of the Weimar cinema movement before this. He loved an arch royalist or royalist adjacent story. I think you and Alexander Korda would have had a lot to chat about, Rena.
I love princesses.
You do love princesses, and he kind of loves to like take the piss out of princesses and have some fun with that. So he produced a film on Rembrandt, and he also produced that Hamilton Woman, which co-starred Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier, among many other things. He also has a 1927 Helen of Troy that sounds really interesting because it apparently places a lot of modern issues into the story. Korda kind of had this vision of creating an international film community. And something to note too is that there were a lot of cross-border productions in Europe before the whole Nazi thing happened. So you see partnerships between countries to make movies. Another thing that was really incredible before the whole Nazi thing is this Weimar cinema movement, which the director of this film, Paul Czinner, was a part of. So Weimar cinema is German expressionism, a lot of exploration of madness and narrative. There's also a lot of really impressive sort of like art direction. And probably the most direct and immediate influence on American filmmaking from that movement can be seen in a lot of film noir. Hence, Edward G. Robinson turning and facing the camera and talking to you about insurance fraud. And then you also have in that movement movies like Metropolis and The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and Nosferatu, which influenced everything from Blade Runner and pretty much everything David Fincher has ever done. And you can also see a lot of this in Stanley Kubrick's work. In this movie particularly, I was really keying in on many like steady one-shot perspectives and symmetrical set pieces in this movie. There's a lot of majestic setups in this movie.
I was impressed with the sets. I was impressed with the blocking. Just the shot composition was gorgeous.
I mean, most of my notes are, oh my God, look at this shot, which isn't particularly helpful. So a little bit about Paul Czinner, who is a writer, director, and producer, and made this movie. He was also Jewish, gay, and born in Austria-Hungary in 1890. And you can do the math on the profound danger he was in every single day for the first half of his life. He was married to Elisabeth Bernier, who is Catherine in this film. And she knew that he was gay. They had what a lot of people say was a really wonderful personal and professional partnership in spite of this or because of it. But, they were both like apparently very satisfied with that and were very happy. They left Germany once the Nazi Party started to rise and emigrated to Great Britain, where this was made as his first British production. The Germans refused to show it because he was, of course, Jewish. Then they left England for the US in 1940 and worked on Broadway, and then returned to England after the war, where Czinner adapted several operas and ballets to film, including a very beautiful 1966 production of Romeo and Juliet with Margot Fonteyn and Rudolf Nureyev. Which you can see online. And he lived until 1972. So he had a really good long life. As you mentioned, this was one of two Catherine the Great biopics that came out in 1934. It's also one of the two Catherine the Great biopics that came out in 1934 that was directed by a Jewish Weimar era filmmaker. The second one also probably gay, born in Austria-Hungary in the 1890s with lead actresses who were strong partners of those filmmakers. So Joseph von Sternberg directed The Scarlet Empress with Marlene Dietrich, which means that at no point in 1934 was Catherine the Great portrayed with having eyebrows.
Gosh, those eyebrows. I'm really glad that hasn't come back. Those eyebrows where it's like completely gone and you just draw a crescent moon.
It's a bad look.
Yeah. But this movie is 91 years old, and yes, it happened again. 2 movies about the same person made in the same year. This is a perennial phenomena with the biopic. Multiple studios get something around a hot story into development at the same time. Who knows why? And that is how we got Tombstone and Wyatt Earp the same year in the 90s. And why there were 2 Jean Harlow biopics the same year in the 60s. It happens again and again and again, and I wasn't surprised that we ran into another instance of it here.
Just by the sheer bulk of movies that were coming out in that time period, the way they would just churn them out, not surprising either that they would come across the same subject matter. Also, I should add, too, that to me, Alexander Korda very much fits into my Venn diagram. So there's that.
I noted Alexander Korda worked on 3 or 4 pictures a year for like 20 years. Directors were not precious at all about this is my baby, and they're working on it for like 3 years between pictures. Like now, if someone makes 1 picture a year, it's considered super prolific. The churn rate under the studio system was crazy.
They made everything in less time.
I hope you noticed our theme music this week. We now have an intro and an outro that you'll get to hear at the start and end of every episode after this.
Yes, we want to thank our friend Ben, who created some music for us to do for our opening and our closing, and is leading us to a greater sense of professionalism on this podcast. Thank you, Ben. We will link to your Spotify in our show notes.
Yeah, so let's start the movie. We open in a Russian hunting lodge.
Yeah, my first note is, oh brother, is this movie old? Which it is.
This movie is 91 years old.
We find out it's 1745 and we're hunting at Peter the Great's hunting lodge with Peter the Not So Great.
Do they ever specify that it's Peter the Great's hunting lodge?
I thought they said that in the log line there, but I could have missed that.
Just a reminder, this is not Peter the Great. Peter the Great has been dead for a while. This Peter is played by Douglas Fairbanks Jr. in this movie, and this is Peter the Third, or as we will call him, Peter the ridiculously inadequate, Peter the petulant, not a very great Peter.
Peter the child brain.
Yeah. Peter the terrible violinist.
Peter the dog beater.
There are stories about him beating up the dogs, and it was just too sad for me to repeat any of that.
Yeah, it's really sad.
I think that Douglas Fairbanks Jr., who is dashing, he's miscast in this role. He's a leading man stuck in what should be a character part, but they need to have a leading man.
Yeah, he doesn't look the part, but I would say that this is a pretty good performance for him.
He's occasionally charming, but he's paranoid. He's losing it and doesn't really have it to begin with. But like in real life, Peter was quite short, and he got smallpox as a teenager. It ruined his looks. Have you ever looked up pictures of people with smallpox scars?
Yeah, it's a bummer.
And you can't cast that in a big picture back then. And I'm just frustrated the whole time because this isn't Catherine, this isn't Peter, this isn't even really Elisabeth. This is like a bare idea of these people, and the only thing that feels real is the coup. And they can't be honest about anything because they're living in a time where everyone is a big fucking prude.
I would also note here, there's so much music at the opening of this, to the point where there was some singing going on, and I thought it was going to be Catherine showing up and singing in such a way that it drew him in, but it was all like non-diegetic music. And also it does feel a little bit here like we've been dropped into the middle of the movie. It feels like I'm supposed to know what's happening and I don't.
Sarah, what does diegetic mean in reference to music?
If the music is being played in the actual scene. My example is going to be John Cusack holding up the boombox in Say Anything. In Your Eyes is playing in the movie.
Okay.
So the characters are hearing it, like, and it's music that they are hearing and it's part of the scene. Whereas later in the movie, you know, it's playing over a montage, and that's non-diegetic music. So if the characters aren't actually hearing it and it's being used like as part of what is happening in the scene, then that is diegetic music.
Got it. Thank you. I understood where we were, and then I guess I saw Fairbanks and I was like, oh great, I guess they're not showing them as 15 and 16. And I have no idea what amount of time is supposed to be passing in this movie. At one point they say it's 2 years since the marriage, but it's like a throwaway line. And in real life, she was there for about a year before they were married. Then it took her 9 years to conceive. Then it was a few more years before Elisabeth dies, and then about 6 months before the coup, because that's how terrible Peter was at ruling.
Yeah, the passage of time here is not great.
Neither of them look like teenagers when she shows up. They both look 35.
So we find out that he's being forced to get married, and he's being a huge baby about this. Because as you mentioned earlier, he has the brain of a child. And Flora Robson is here, who is a super talented actress. And I mentioned in our Henry VIII episode that Wuthering Heights is one of my all-time favorite movies, and she is in that and wonderful in that as well. But it was really a fun treat to see her playing someone kind of saucy.
Yeah, it's a treat to see her playing someone who's a sexual being, because she's always like old and like dried up.
Yeah, she's always the marm, and she seemed like she was having a really good time in this movie. It's more gorgeous shots as we're kind of getting the lay of the land with the palace. She's telling Peter that she needs him to get married, and he's not really marriage material.
Yeah, she needs an heir. After Peter the Great dies, his wife becomes Empress Catherine I. To make a long story short, in Russia, the next ruler would be whoever the emperor designates. Anywho, Elisabeth, she's Peter the Great's daughter. There are some cousins who are in charge for some reason, with a child emperor named Ivan VI, and the soldiers come to Elisabeth and they say, like, either you do this coup or Empress Anna is going to send you to the nunnery. And Elisabeth, who loves partying and having lots of lovers, is like, right, no way. So she has a coup and she becomes Empress.
Good plan.
She names Peter as her heir because by the time she comes to the throne, she's already over 30, has had many lovers, and she hasn't gotten pregnant. So she figures out that there's a strong chance she's infertile, and she's also sort of in the same bind as Elisabeth of England and lots of other queens reigning, in that finding a man of sufficient rank for them to marry him is very small sampling, and then if they do marry, the man will want to take over, and they don't want that. So she finds her nephew, and she doesn't realize when she brings him there that he's an idiot who hates Russia and worships Frederick of Prussia, who the Russians are frequently at war with.
It always goes well when your leader is obsessed with the leader of another country. So,
oh yeah, always goes well.
It's great.
Elizabeth liked to throw parties where everyone was forced to dress as a member of the opposite sex, because Elizabeth had really great legs. So she liked to show them off, but that also meant the men had to wear ball gowns and corsets and like enormous skirts. And again, from Robert Massey, every Tuesday, by decree of the Empress, men would attend dressed as women, and women would dance dressed as men. Catherine, then 15, was delighted by this change of costume. I must say that there was nothing more hideous and at the same time more comical than to see most men dressed in this way, and nothing more miserable than to see women in men's clothes. Most of the court roundly detested these evenings, but Elizabeth had a reason for this caprice. She looked superb in male clothing, so she could just make everyone party with her, and she didn't like to go to bed until around dawn. So she would sleep into the afternoon and then have everyone party every night. And they show her occasionally working in this movie. I'm not sure if that's a thing she actually did.
Yeah, she does work quite a bit in this.
But Russia seemed to function under her, and she got rid of capital punishment, so her memory is still kind of loved.
Not all bad.
Not all bad.
And then we see Catherine show up because she is going to marry Peter because she is of the right stock, but not a threat. And she's all like kind of naive and adorable.
And this isn't Catherine. She was a brilliant, harsh, badass person. And this woman is just cutesy. Her smile looks like this rictus with chiclet teeth. And they have given her the worst haircut possibly in the history of cinema. Or one of the worst, where it looks like if you just went around and clipped all of the hair to a length of about 3 or 4 inches all the same way all around the head and let it spring in on itself. It's like clown wig hair, tightly corkscrewed. I don't know who thought this looked good. I have so many problems with this hair.
Here's the thing with her being kind of naive and adorable is that I didn't necessarily read that as true to who she was. My take was she was using that in order to kind of work her way in.
I guess you ascribed more intelligence, more depth than I did. I thought, okay, this is another one of those portraits of a young girl becoming a woman. Okay. God, that hair is annoying to look at.
I was kind of coming at it from the perspective of Korda made these movies with that kind of arch sensibility of winking at the audience and kind of making fun of palace intrigue. So I interpreted it as a modern take on her and interpretation.
I love the scenes where he shows the gossip of the court. There's one where Flora Robson takes a new lover into her room, and then someone whispers the name, and you see all the people in their wigs buzzing around, going whispering his name. And I liked that shot. Everything the camera does in this movie is just gorgeous. It's compositionally beautiful.
It really is it's such a cool movie to see the first time some of these things were being done.
Yeah, and all the sets look gorgeous, and there's only a year between Private Life of Henry VIII and this, but they're already learning so much about how to move with the camera, because in my one film class that I took in college, one of the things we learned about was how much more stationary the camera became in the transition from silent to sound, because you were at the mercy of the microphones until they figured out overdubbing, and then they could move more. But this already feels more spacious.
It does, and he gets like a really good sense of place in all of it. I felt like they did so many great shots that showed the size and the scope of things. You'd see someone walking down a hallway, like through several sets of doors to reach you and things like that. Like that's the shit you see in The Shining. And in 2001 A Space Odyssey, really great looking camera work that really used the space and kind of demonstrated things. Like really great cinematography tells even more of the story. Ari Aster is really good at this, like where there's things happening on the margins of shots that add to the sinisterness of things or like add to the vibe and tell more of the story. This was just a really wonderful example of like that template for using the camera and using the space to tell more of the story, to give you a sense of energy and vibe.
Yeah. I was mostly like wrapped up in my frustration at how little this adheres to the real story and how much her like deer caught in the headlights routine and her bad hair annoyed me. I did appreciate that it was beautiful.
I think these movies are a take on what happened and a little bit satirical. Like you think back on like Private Life of Henry VIII, where you see the people at the beheading being like, oh, I need a new hat for the next one. There's like a lovely sort of perspective that they're bringing with this that is unique and is a way to tell more of a story. I kind of loved how it was an interpretation that had a lot of its own opinion. So,
I love The Great, which is about as truthful as this thing is. And it's also doing an interpretation. But I think that a lot of that has to do with The Great isn't under the same strictures that this is around, because what these morality codes wound up meaning was that you couldn't show real life as it is or was or had been. And this issue's brought up that the throne must have an heir. Catherine, having had a son who was the heir, was her claim that she was able to hold the coup through. But she never has a baby in this. And we all know that, like, casting directors love to kill children. Them not having a kid, it doesn't really give her any... It makes everything not make sense for me. Anyway, Catherine has been sent to the court. We've met her overbearing mother. We've met Elisabeth. And now Catherine and Peter are about to have a contrived, mistaken identity meet cute.
Yeah, it's adorable. And he doesn't seem to really know what to make of her. Like he sort of takes her sincerity at face value, but also is... sort of like, why is she being this way? Why is she like this? This has to be a trick. And Fairbanks is doing this kind of lazy eye thing that I don't know if is a choice or not, but there was like, he did his level best to make this man unattractive.
He can't really go all in with it because they need there to be a leading man.
Yeah. It's like when you see Brad Pitt trying to play like an ugly, weird character, it's like, yeah, but he's still Brad Pitt and I can see that.
Yeah. And then she's saying that she loves the Great. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me that she loves him. It's just something she's been schooled to, and she keeps insisting throughout the film that she loves him. Why does she need to be in love with him? Why can't they just make this a mismatch?
If you think like she's so young, not to keep referencing The Great, you see her in that like being like, I have to sell in this notion that we are a happy couple and we are in love. I think she's probably like, well, this must be love and this is what it's supposed to be. Or
yeah, it's funny. You're seeing these other layers to things, and I don't know why I'm not, but I'm not. This makes zero sense to me. But since he thinks that she doesn't just want him for being the Grand Duke because they've had mistaken identity meet cute, now he does want to marry her. So they're getting married, and then we learn that Flora Robson is frustrated with trying her dresses on, and she's wearing, like, I don't know if it's supposed to be gilt lace, but the way the camera hits it, it looks like she made a collar out of cling wrap or cellophane. But it's mentioned that she has 5,000 dresses, which is true. She had thousands of dresses. Peter is almost happy to be marrying her until the valet suggests that she knew it was him the whole time.
Yeah, and then he's like, oh, I can't spend my wedding night with her. There's this brinksmanship between them that led me to my perspective that she was way more clever than she was letting on. He also has this mole that keeps moving around. Sometimes he has two of them. It's a choice.
It annoyed me whenever they'd call her Little Catherine. I guess that just, to me, this film fundamentally doesn't work.
That's fine. But it's okay if that wasn't your read. Like, because we literally don't know what anybody was thinking because they're all dead. There is also a magnificent dog in here.
Yes, we agreed on this. I think it's a Borzoi. It's this beautiful, lean dog with this long, feathery fur, and I just want to snuggle my face in it. It's beautiful.
He doesn't want to do his wedding night, but she doesn't either.
Peter makes an appointment to see his mistress the night of the wedding. And Catherine is left alone crying in the bedroom, and Elisabeth comes to see her, and she's mad at Peter. So let us soldier ahead. There are a lot of really good scenes of female mentoring in this, of Elisabeth showing Catherine the ropes. Elisabeth talks about why can't we just put women in charge of things, and they are showing Elisabeth being a lot more competent than she was. She seems to have let her people who knew what they were doing do their thing while she partied.
Between this and Alexander, I'm getting the impression that it wasn't terribly complicated to be a leader back in the day. You were never going to have to interact with voters or anything like that. Like, you could kind of just maintain the status quo.
Well, they show scenes of, like, talking about statecraft where she says, if the peasants are revolting, hang the governors and feed the peasants. So Peter is just mercurial AF, and Catherine is pretending that she's seduced the regiment to try to make him jealous. And we see her in the regimental uniform, which shows off her legs. And that haircut just keeps getting worse.
It was the 30s. Everything was terrible. To be clear, like, she's matching him and outwitting him at every turn. Everybody really likes her, and he's just kind of a buffoon. And now the Empress is dying.
Yeah.
I have a note here. Her Majesty may recover, she may. This shot is so amazing. There were so many good shots.
That's compositionally beautiful. And there's this scene where Elisabeth, like, pulls it together to go to the ball because she's heard that Peter has been plotting, and she announces that she'll dance the minuet, and you just see her energy depleting. She's dying, and Peter has terrible plans about how to run Russia. Like, he actually had even worse plans in real life, like that Russia was winning a war against Frederick of Prussia, the man Peter idolizes. So Peter announces, hey, war over, let's make peace. And he had his own special regiment of soldiers. He liked to have soldiers dressed in Prussian uniforms, the uniforms of the people his country was supposed to be fighting. At his coronation, he didn't see the necessity of being crowned in Moscow. He ruled for about 6 months.
I mean, he's like Billy Madison.
Yeah. He hasn't had any interest in learning from anyone around him how to rule. And they don't go, like, I don't know who this character is supposed to be, but he was German. He was a foreigner. He didn't care about Russia. His inherited title was like as Duke of Holstein in Germany. So after ending this war that Russia was winning against Prussia, he wanted to take his troops to detach a tiny piece of Denmark to add it to the little German duchy that he comes from when he has all of Russia.
Yeah, he sucks.
Yeah.
And he's got big ideas about what women should be doing, which is to say he keeps telling Catherine that she should get back in the kitchen.
But she's royalty. She doesn't have to cook.
It's definitely not a line for that time period. It's a line for the present time period of this movie in terms of being like, no, women do not deserve to have any say in anything.
Wow, Korda is so ahead of his time, though, in, like, there's one scene where he's made a list of people that bringing back from Siberia and people he's sending to Siberia, and Catherine talks him out of sending the people to Siberia very cleverly. Like, she's working around him. I love Korda for being on the side of, let women run things.
I mean, this is the kind of thing that makes me think that she came in clever and just kept getting more clever and knew how to use the tools that she had, like, and did. Like, to me, like, this was a really feminist movie for its time.
Everyone is urging her, you have to coup him out of there. You have to coup him. She's had tons of lovers, and there was this amusing thing earlier in the film where she pretended that she'd had 17 lovers in order to frustrate Peter, and he, like, catches her in the lie. It is coup time.
It is coup time, and she is ready to roll. Like, she's completely transformed into, like, boss bitch, and he is wandering around looking for her, and it's just this.
He's just said that he's sending her to the nunnery, but for some reason he's looking for her.
Yes, we again get a really good sense of place, and also it's almost like an MC Escher kind of painting, where we're just seeing all of these stairs that are going up and down and cutting back and forth between that and the gargoyles as he's running around trying to find her. Then he finds out that he has been bested for the last time, and he's shipping out. And then this was, I think, my favorite shot of the movie is when they bring her in as Empress, and you see all the way down the hall, and you see the soldiers lined up on both sides, and you see her walking through like 1, 2, 3 sets of doors from the back. I was giddy over this. Like, I was just so delighted by it. And loved this so much. And she goes out on that balcony and she strikes the Evita pose and is being cheered for, and she is delighted. And I got a little turned around here because I thought he was being taken to his death, but then we find out that he died and was murdered.
Do you remember when we watched Beckett? Will no one rid me of this troublesome priest? I know I got the exact wording wrong. I apologize in advance. Yeah, it's sort of a case of will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest. We don't quite know. It's been pinned on her. Grigory Orlov was one of 5, like, strapping giant Orlov brothers. We don't know, but Peter unfortunately died after about a week of house arrest.
Them's the breaks.
Yeah, and the actual story of the coup where he's at the country house and he thinks there are going to be fireworks for his birthday, and then all of the soldiers that he has dressed in his Prussian uniforms they were only armed with wooden swords. It's crazy.
I love a coup.
That's our movie, folks.
This is a piece of history. The pace is not what we're used to in terms of foundation for filmmaking. Like, really cool to see a style of filmmaking that's so influential.
Yeah, I'd agree on that. And I don't want to only do films from the last few decades. I could never buy it as I felt like they had to try to graft some shred of resemblance of a love story over it in a way that just plain made it not work. I enjoyed Flora Robson. I found it really pretty to look at, and I was just frustrated. And I think so. I also think that, like, to appreciate 30s filmmaking, you kind of have to go on a 30s film binge. It's a whole other visual language where you have to get used to it. I say that I'll do that when we're doing one of these films from, like, before, say, 1950 or so. And then I just sit down and watch that thing. If I'm going to watch Humphrey Bogart gangster films, I watch them 3 in a row.
Yeah, and they go down easy.
So, do we have any awards talk this week?
No awards talk.
So, my pick for choice dialogue was, you can't live with 17 imaginary lovers. What you need is one real one.
That's a good one.
There was quite a lot of fairly sparkling dialogue. Flora Robson had great delivery, and Elisabeth had so many pithy things to say. So, Sarah, can you please give our listeners a quick refresher on how we score movies?
I'd be happy to. We rate movies on a 1 to 10 scale across 10 areas that we find to be subjectively and or objectively important to most films, but specially tailored to specific issues particular to biopics. If you want more details on how we score movies, please scroll down our webpage at biopicapodcaststory.podbean.com. You'll also find a record of our scores for past episodes. And with that out of the way, let's score this thing.
Sarah, do you want to go first?
Sure. His outward appearances, I gave it an 8, cutting points for that mole, and her hair is distracting. Acting and casting, gave it a 7. I think for the most part, very good, but he is miscast even though he's good. Passage of time, 2. Costuming, 8. Quality of the script, 7. Accuracy, 4. Storytelling, 5. Production value, 9. Production and direction decision making, 9. And do we care, 5.
So for outward appearances, makeup, and hair, I gave it a 6. For acting and casting, I gave it a 6. For passage of time, and that's mostly for Flora. For passage of time, I gave it a 3. For costuming, I gave it an 8. For quality of the script, 6.5. For accuracy, 2.5. For storytelling, I gave it a 5. For production value, I gave it a 9. For production, direction, decision making, I gave it an 8. And for do we care, I gave it a 6. I guess it's what I cared because I was mad.
So my total came out to 6.4.
Mine came to 5.5, and I had thought about using the by in honor of Korda, but we did that for Private Life of Henry VIII, and I feel like that one holds up just a little bit better than this does.
Yeah, for sure. Although I really enjoyed this.
I think this is visually much more beautiful, and what they could do with the camera as they're recovering from losing the mobility they had with silence. Year by year, it leaps forward, but I think storytelling is more important, and the storytelling in Private Life just adhered a little better. 6.4 plus 5.5. The Rise of Catherine the Great. Your combined score comes to 5.95. You did not earn second opinion, but you are a perfectly enjoyable and interesting way to spend 94 minutes of one's life.
Indeed, I enjoyed this little journey into history very much.
Me too. So other stuff that you should watch instead, I really love The Great, which is like this, not close to accurate. It even bills itself with an asterisk as an occasionally true story or an almost entirely untrue story, but I feel like translating the spirit of things, the sensibility of it works really well for me, and it's hilarious, and it's one of the best cast shows I've ever seen. It has Elle Fanning as the young Catherine and Nicholas Hoult as Peter III, so I would say at least watch the pilot for The Great.
I'm all in now on The Great. I'm a proud Elle Fanning stockholder for years. I believe in her, and also I am a proud Nicholas Hoult stockholder. Is that how you pronounce his name? I have no idea.
I don't know whether it's Holt or Hoult, but who else is in that? Sacha Dhawan, who is great in everything. He was even good in Iron Fist, and that show is terrible.
I'm delighted by it so far. I'm new to it. I think this is definitely a good movie to watch. I think you could watch it without sound, listen to a podcast and put it on the screen Dark Side of the Moon and Wizard of Oz style. But if you don't want to watch it, I would say watch any of the 800 other movies I named in the mix here. Any Kubrick, Brian De Palma. This was a good reminder of there's a lot of good movies out there.
There's 9 decades of sound filmmaking. There's 3 decades of silent filmmaking before that, and it all has good stuff.
Oh my God, and watch Double Indemnity.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so good. Double Indemnity, Mildred Pierce. Like, there's so many good movies. That's kind of the lesson here.
Oh, and the Husbands of Joan Crawford series from You Must Remember This.
I love so much in the Joan Crawford series when she gets to the point where she's talking about how the only real movie star is Faye Dunaway. And it's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She's going to destroy you, man.
I don't believe, do we have a Cormac Fingere award, a cameo award?
No, I couldn't make heads or tails of the people in it, nor could I find any real extras. If there were like the couple at the hanging in the last movie in there somewhere, then they would have gotten it, but they didn't exist in this movie. No Cormac award this week, but we'll be on the lookout for next week.
Yes. Retractions, apologies, and listener mailbag.
Before we go, we have to apologize for something we said in a previous episode that turned out to be misinformation, and we are sorry for this.
We were wrong. Sometimes we're wrong.
So true. Rena, what were we wrong about?
In episode 62, Florence Foster Jenkins, we referred to the historic West Village bar Chumley's as if it were still open. I did a fact check while doing my edit of the Florence Foster Jenkins episode and discovered that Chumley's has closed.
Alas.
I guess that's what happens when your memories are rooted in a consumer culture. People can take things away from you if they don't meet profitability rules.
It's the invisible hand of the free market.
The free market is just a bunch of asses with no taste.
It can be, yes.
And after complaining about the free market, it's time for our Patreon requests.
Our podcast baby has matured into a bigger baby. And we have launched a Patreon, simply an effort to defray some of the costs associated with bringing this show to you. Platform hosting, recording, research. Occasionally we have to order a book off the internet. We also sometimes pay for movie rentals because we are not monsters. We are offering shout outs and access to our awful first 3 episodes for anyone who chips in. And with that, we'd love to thank Gates, who signed up already.
Thank you, Gates.
Thank you, Gates. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star rating and subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and tell a friend, or better yet, plural friends, and share us on social media. We hear it helps. You can follow us on Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram, where we have visual aids from all our episodes. Our Instagram handle is at Biopic a Podcast Story, so do check us out there, and we'll link to that in the show notes as well. You can also check out our webpage at biopicapodcaststory.podbean.com to see our official episode ratings for all of the movies that we've done so far. And if you would like to get in touch, you can email us at biopiclistenermailbag@gmail.com. Once again, our new theme music is by Ben. The intro to his song Slater Cannonball, and the outro is the song Spring Breakers, and you can check him out on Spotify, and we'll link to that in the show notes.
Great. So good night to the earnest and the cynical.
Yes, indeed. Good night, and good night, Rena.
Good night, Sarah.